What if the Jedi weren't wiped out in a single night, but scattered like embers, waiting to reignite? Order 66 wasn't flawless. It was fast, brutal, but not complete. Some Jedi ran and hid, while others became something unrecognizable. So let's take a closer look at the Jedi who lived through the purge, and what they became. Baylan Skoll. Baylan's not mentioned in the archives. He doesn't show up in Jedi holocrons, and yet, by the time we reach the events of Ahsoka, he stands tall in full Jedi robes, wielding an orange-bladed lightsaber. And speaking of the Jedi as something lost, and perhaps rightfully so. So, who was Baylan Skoll? According to Ahsoka showrunner Dave Filoni, Baylan was a Jedi Knight who lived through the Clone Wars and did survive Order 66, but not unchanged. He saw the Republic fall, saw the Jedi collapse under their own blind idealism, and chose not to cling to a broken code. What's more interesting is his unique path. He didn't join the Sith. He didn't go into exile. He became something else. That orange lightsaber? It's not corrupted like the Sith, but not clean like the Jedi either. Ray Stevenson, who played Baylan before his passing in May 2023, described him as a fallen idealist, a man who saw too much, lost too much, and now seeks a power beyond the binary of light and dark. But this next survivor was someone fans had been waiting to resurface for years. Quinlan Vos. Quinlan Vos first appeared in the background of The Phantom Menace, but his real legacy was built in Star Wars Republic comics and the Clone Wars series, where he gained cult status. A Jedi with psychometric abilities, he can read memories from objects. Vos never fully aligned with traditional Jedi orthodoxy. He operated in the shadows, often working deep undercover, and maybe that's exactly why he survived. During the Clone Wars, he was even assigned to assassinate Count Dooku, and his eventual relationship with Asajj Ventress blurred the line between Jedi and outcast even more. After Order 66, Vos vanished, but in Obi-Wan Kenobi, carved into the walls of a hidden safe house, we see his name. Quinlan was here.
What does it say?
Quinlan was here.
It confirms that he's alive, still moving through the galaxy and still helping others escape the reach of the Empire. And according to series writers, he was instrumental in building the Path, a secret route for Force sensitives and former Jedi to reach safety. But not every survivor clung to the ideals they were once swore to protect. Some twisted their training into something far more dangerous. The Grand Inquisitor. He was a Jedi Temple guard. That detail matters. The Grand Inquisitor, introduced in Star Wars Rebels, wasn't just any Force-sensitive convert. He once stood inside the Jedi Temple, masked in gold, sworn to uphold peace within the sacred halls. Yet by the time of the Inquisitorius program, he's one of the Empire's most merciless Jedi hunters. But why did he turn? The Darth Vader comics suggest the Grand Inquisitor was already disillusioned within the Jedi Order, even before its fall. Resentful of their secrecy, their failures, their blind obedience to the Republic, Palpatine and Vader didn't corrupt him with power. They gave him permission to abandon what he no longer believed in. In Rebels, he chose death rather than face Vader's wrath after a defeat. But in Obi-Wan Kenobi, he survives a mortal wound. Does that break canon? Actually, no. Lucasfilm's story group confirmed the timeline. He survives Obi-Wan, only to fall later in Rebels. But perhaps the most tragic fate on this list belongs to Luminara. Luminara Unduli. A master of calm and discipline, Luminara Unduli was last seen in Revenge of the Sith, stationed on Kashyyyk. In the Legends timeline, she died during the clone betrayal. But in canon, the story is much darker. The Star Wars Rebels episode, Rise of the Old Masters, reveals that Luminara's body was used by the Empire. Her remains kept in stasis, a holographic illusion projected to bait surviving Jedi into capture. Her voice, her image, her identity, all turned into a weapon. This is what the Empire did best. Not just destroy the Jedi, but corrupt their legacy. And here's the deeper cut. Luminara once trained Barriss Offee, who betrayed the Jedi Order during the Clone Wars. Is it possible that Luminara's strict teachings pushed Barriss towards disillusionment? While some Jedi were turned into symbols by the Empire, others quietly prepared for what came next, long before the Purge even began. Eno Cordova. How do you hide from an empire without ever leaving a trail? For Eno Cordova, the answer was hiding his legacy. Cordova wasn't a Jedi known for combat or battlefield heroics. He was a scholar, a seeker of ancient knowledge, and that may be why he was overlooked when Order 66 fell. But overlooked doesn't mean irrelevant. His work became the foundation for something far more important: the survival of Force-sensitive knowledge itself. In Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, we learn that Cordova went into hiding before the Purge even happened. He sensed it coming. His travels led him to Zeffo ruins and ancient temples, well beyond Republic space. He left behind a holomap, a droid named BD-1, and a message meant only for someone who could continue what the Jedi could not: rebuilding hope. What makes Cordova unique is that he planned to be forgotten. But did he know just how much his legacy would matter? Without him, Cal Kestis wouldn't have stood a chance. Order 66 pushed the Jedi legacy to the brink, but for one survivor, everything came down to a single, decisive rescue amid the fire and confusion. Kelleran Beq. We all asked the same thing. How did Grogu survive the Jedi Temple massacre? And the answer was a name most fans never expected to hear again: Kelleran Beq. Originally introduced as the host of the children's game show Jedi Temple Challenge, played by none other than Ahmed Best, the actor behind Jar Jar Binks, Kelleran Beq was never part of the mainline canon. That is, until The Mandalorian Season 3 changed everything. In a flashback, we see Grogu, tiny, confused, afraid, being rescued during the chaos of Order 66. And the Jedi who fights through the clones, piloting him to safety? Kelleran Beq, the Sabered Hand. A Jedi Master, trained in both lightsaber combat and protective defense. His dual saber style reflects a deep knowledge of both Form 3 and Form 4, focused on survival and agility. But it's not just a coincidence. Ahmed Best has said that Kelleran was always designed to protect the next generation, and Grogu was someone the Jedi knew had to survive. Not everyone who survived the Purge held onto the role of protector. Bode Akuna carved out a path driven by loss and compromise. Bode Akuna. He's not just a Jedi in the traditional sense, but he was one. Introduced in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Bode Akuna is a former Jedi Knight who vanished after Order 66. He became a mercenary, a father, and ultimately a traitor. His betrayal of Cal Kestis was based on ideological differences. Bode believed the Jedi had lost their right to lead, and his loyalty became tied to his daughter's survival, not the Jedi Order. Bode's Force abilities were intact, his training sharp, and yet he didn't rebuild. Is he an outlier, or the example no one wants to admit exists? He ran from the Order, but Rahn was an example of someone who preserved fragments of ancient wisdom that the galaxy was never meant to forget. Rahn. If you never played the Dark Forces or Jedi Knight games from the 90s, you might have missed this name, but Rahn is canon adjacent and legendary in Legends. Rahn was a Jedi Knight during the Clone Wars, who survived Order 66 and went into hiding. In Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, he appears posthumously as a Force ghost guiding Kyle Katarn. But it's what happened before that matters. Rahn was hunted by the Dark Jedi Jarek and executed, but not before passing on critical knowledge of the Valley of the Jedi, one of the galaxy's most potent Force nexuses. Here's where things get interesting. Rahn's writings are considered part of the foundational lore of Jedi mysticism in the post-Creekle expanded universe. He emphasized inner balance even more than the Council did, a Jedi who believed in listening to the Force over orders. And while he hasn't yet been fully reintroduced into current canon, Lucasfilm has recanonized elements of his history. Unlike Rahn, not every survivor saw balance. Some let the shadows in and called it transformation. Taron Malicos. Taron Malicos was once a Jedi General during the Clone Wars, strong, respected, powerful. But when Order 66 struck, he crash-landed on Dathomir, and instead of holding onto the Jedi way, he did what many couldn't. He gave in. In Fallen Order, we find Malicos embraced the dark side, not as a Sith, but as something ancient, primal, and deeply tied to the witches of Dathomir. He learns from the Night Sisters, manipulates the locals, and eventually tries to seduce Cal Kestis into abandoning the Jedi entirely.
Lucky hit!
What makes Malicos haunting is how calm he is. He believes he's involved, that clinging to the Jedi is a weakness, and in a galaxy where the Order no longer exists, that kind of logic becomes dangerously persuasive. He's ultimately defeated, but his fate remains ambiguous. Buried, but not confirmed, dead. So what do you think? Did he actually survive? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you're into stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.